Not too long ago, I was watching one of the largest Division 2 streamers slash YouTubers, and the amount of dumb that was coming out of him was just unfathomable. So, I'm going to correct his mistakes. It was in regards to Hazpro and the uses of it, the immunity thresholds, and what actually being immune to certain statuses or hazards in the game actually means. So hopefully this video won't be too long, but let's just get it started, shall we? Right, so from the off, these are rounded. I believe the actual immunity for things like poison, I've got here 96%. I believe it's something like really daft, like 95.8, and then ensnare is like 92.7, bleed is like 92.5 or something. So yeah, poison is 96, ensnare, which is obviously foam, 93, being bled, 93, blind slash deaf is 91, burn is 91, disorient is 93, disrupt is 96, and shock is 84. As an added bonus to this, pulse, although technically not a status effect, is, I believe, 100%. Although I have actually, in one of the discords I'm in, there is a lovely guy who is pretty prominent into his PvP. He actually claims going to 99.8% is actually best, simply because the pulse doesn't last long enough for them to get spotter to do any damage to you. But when you do get pulsed, if you're at 100% immunity, it doesn't actually notify you. Whereas if you're at 98, it will let you know that you've been pulsed. It doesn't last long enough to do anything, and this at least gives you a warning for those that are in PvP that someone is nearby pulsing you, which is, I suppose, a more tactical way to play. Anyway, poison, 96%. Poison is actually a pretty tricky status because it only really appears in certain areas in certain missions, and you don't really run into it all too often. One of the best ones to actually come across poison, I say best like it's a good thing to get yourself poisoned, is DCD headquarters. There are red barrels, I believe they're red anyway. These are technically poison, although the icon for it is quite similar, if not the exact same as bleed, which is weird. Typically, this will go straight through to your health bar. It won't go through armor, it will go straight through to your health. However, when these barrels explode, they will knock you out of cover. If you are completely immune to poison, the barrels exploding will still knock you out of cover. You will still take damage from that barrel exploding. You just will not be subject to the poison hitting your health afterwards. Ensnare, 93%. This is really simple. Only really come across this in 3 different ways. One, from your character or PvP, from other people throwing riot foam at you, or you being a numpty and riot foaming yourself. 2, the True Sons weird splurge boys that run around and just splurge. They're splurging everywhere. And the 3rd one will be cleaners. There's one group of them that has a mortar that fires flaming tar. This will ensnare you and set you on fire. Yeah. Obviously, there is the Chungers in Iron Horse Raid, Boss 4, that have a Police M4 as well as a Splurge gun, but let's face it, they just get one shot anyway, so screw it. Bleed, arguably one of the weakest status in the game. It's just really annoying, if anything else. The damage application of this is really low. The most annoying part is the fact that it actually slows your character down. So the bleed effect itself is quite weak. It's the slowing effect which allows you to get more shots off. If you are immune to bleed, you will still take damage from the bleed application. Typically, in order to be subject to bleed, something will be applying it, whether it's a bullet, something exploding like a warhound, they can apply bleed, varying crates, etc, etc. This will still do damage to you. It's only after the status effect has been applied where you will not be subject to it, including the slowing effect. An easy way to actually show this, because it only applies the direct bleed itself with no damage application, would be something like backfire. Blind and deaf at 91%. This is actually a really simple one. It's only really applied in a few ways, really. Flashbang grenades, if you do it to yourself. A few enemies also have them as well. However, the main sources will be snipers. They have a weird little laser which blinds enemies. I don't know why we don't have that. That would be amazing. As well as mini tanks from the Black Tusk. They have a laser that spins around. So if you've ever seen a mini tank just like spamming a laser somewhere, just turn your camera the other way. Or just be Hazpro. It's fine. Burn, 91%. This is actually a weird one, and I see a lot of people actually get this confused. Burn is applied by something that is fiery. Lots of owies and worms. If you are in continuous direct contact with the owies and worms, you will take damage, even if you are at 100% Hazpro. You just will not catch fire. So if there's a fire on the floor and you stand in it, you will take damage. You just won't take the status damage on top of it. If you get hit with a fire bullet, you still take the damage from the bullet. If there's a fire grenade that gets thrown at you and it explodes, you'll take damage from the explosion. You'll take damage from the fire that's on the ground. You just won't catch fire. See, a lot of people get really confused that they still take damage from fire when they're stood in the fire. Your hazard protection, you're immune to the status effect of it, not the fact that you're stood in fire. AIDS, 93%. I mean Disorient, sorry. To me this is AIDS. I really hate, with an absolute passion, Disorient. Again, this isn't actually a damage status, so whatever actually applies this will still hurt you. The only exception to this would be your shield break, and whoever thought of this needs to be fired. I will stand by this till the day I die. Whoever came up with the idea that shield break applies Disorient on your character is an absolute mongo and clearly doesn't play the fucking game. Anyway, Disorient, arguably the most annoying and toxic of the status. Just makes you go fuzzy and you can't move properly. However, whatever is applying this, especially if it's a continuous application, such as doing diagnostics in the Iron Horse raid, there is a part going through the steam where you will be subject to Disorient. If you've got good Hazpro, you won't be, but you will take continuous damage from the steam. Now, unless you're running shield, this is the most pointless friggin' status effect in the game in my opinion, but that's just me. Again, something has to apply it. Regardless of what it is, Black Tusk love doing it. However, whatever applies it will still do damage. Typically as well, Disrupt is a weird side effect of shock. Some things will shock you. When you get hit by that initial shock, it will damage you, and then when you're done being shocked, it will apply Disorient. For example, warhounds. Some of them, when they explode, will shock you and then disrupt you. Kind of makes sense actually, because you're running electrical based skills, so yeah. And finally we have shock at 84%. Easy way to show this, if you don't believe me, is go to countdown and wait till you get reactor and you get the electrical floor crap. Go for 100% Hazpro. Dare you. Put it on. Go stand on that floor. You will still get damaged to fuck. It will probably actually one-shot you depending on if you're running like a red build with glass cannon or something. You just won't be static. You can still run around, but it will still fry your ass. Now, in terms of late game, Hazpro is not considered to be that viable. It's just not. You can do more with less, essentially, just because it takes up so many roles in your build. However, that being said, it is damn fun to run around with 100% Hazpro and just be like, dude, I don't care what you're throwing at me. It's fun. I would recommend everyone at least get a Hazpro build, but as to its viability, depends on your playstyle. Anyway, have fun, good luck, don't die. It's bad for the health.